Okay, so let's get started. Um, who's the admission committee and what are they looking for? First off, I think there's a stereotype in at least maybe in the United States that there's some kind of robot or algorithm or computer program that does a lot of the analysis of your application, test scores, that kind of thing. I would say that's completely a myth. Every application is read by multiple people. It's a human process. So there's no kind of computer algorithm. There's no logical uh, processes or scores that you need to hit to be accepted or denied. So it's a pretty case by case basis. It's pretty unique to each application. So there's no algorithm. There's no kind of computer program deciding if you're going to get in or not. The admissions committee are made up of people whose only job is to put together the best incoming class possible for their college or university. What does that mean? When they're designing, so basically, admissions committee goal is to design the incoming class. And when I say design, they want to create a class that's quite interesting, full of different interests and people and opportunities and potential collaborations. So they don't want to build a class where everyone is good at computer science or everyone is good at business or everyone is good at music. They want to build a class of some musicians, some chefs, some people who like literature. So a lot of interesting individuals with interesting interests and hobbies that when they come together they build a diverse class with a diverse set of interests. And they also want to build a class that has variation both in regionalities. So they want to build a class that has international students and students from different states and different experiences. So try to build a diverse class with some very interesting individuals, and that kind of will in the end shape your application as well. So this is a quote from a previous dean from Harvard. Each year we admit about 2,100 applicants. We like to think that all of them have strong personal qualities and character, that they will educate and inspire their classmates over the 4 years of college, that they will make a significant difference in the world after they leave Harvard. It kind of goes to show, this quote goes to show that when they're building a class, they're really looking for individuals that they think will add value to other students, to the university, and then after graduation to the ongoing world. So as it may sound cheesy or cliche, but they really believe that the students that they admit are students that could potentially, be world changers. And they want to make sure that the students they're admitting are bringing value. So when you're thinking about your application, you kind of want to show your achievements, how you have already brought value to your community, to your peers, to your current school, and how you will continue to do that at college. And so the end goal of college in general is to bring value to the world through educating individuals, and you want to really demonstrate that in your application. What does that mean? They want a student. They want a student body that has lots of diverse interests and possibilities. What does that encourage? That's going to encourage students to choose a topic they care about deeply. And this is a kind of slightly debatable slash controversial topic, but many people advise towards kind of having a deep personal interest in one subject. So if you look at the picture on the right, it says well-rounded or well-rounded, and then the next one's kind of a big spike. You can do a lot of things, kind of like, so you can be good at a lot of things and be well-rounded, or you can do one thing incredibly well, and that would be your deep personal interest. So let's say, for example, I really like physics, so I do physics research. I take physics classes. I work on physics projects. So I might be phenomenal in physics, but things such as maybe my English scores or other things may not be as high level. So I have a really large kind of peak in physics, and that kind of is my spike or my deep personal interest. It's important so that when admissions are looking at you, they can see, oh, this person really cares about physics, and we want to add him to the class because he could be a good, interesting person to add, provide new experiences and new kind of perspective. That's one reason to kind of have a big spike. If you're a well-rounded student with no clear interest, then adding to the student body may not be as clear as why you're providing additional value to and why we should accept you. So when you have a really obvious deep interest in some subject like physics or writing or mathematics, computer science, or could be anything, but it's very clearly defined and it's very strong, it becomes much easier for the admissions committee to then accept you. All admission committees are they're university. It's a group of university employees. Their goal was, as we discussed, to build the incoming class, and they're focusing on your extracurriculars, your test scores, and your grades. Those are the main components of your application that they're going to focus on. Some universities in the United States work on slightly different systems. A lot of large public state schools or any kind of school that's run that has some kind of public aspect to it oftentimes will have minimum criteria. So, for example, the University of Alabama, if you have at least a 21 ACT score or 990 SAT with a 3.0 GPA, you're guaranteed admission. So if you hit the minimum grades for some schools, you're guaranteed admission. On the other hand, private universities that are selective, their admission criteria is oftentimes totally locked box. So Harvard University, what they kind of judge everyone on and how they accept you is pretty secretive. So no one exactly knows. A lot of people have guesses of how to get in and how to shape a good application. But Harvard is relatively secretive. They do not release that information. They don't release if they have any minimum scores or quotas or something like that. You have to do a lot of research for other schools to kind of see what previous applicants have done. But important thing to focus on is if your goal is to not apply to super selective universities, to check out if they have any kind of minimum criteria. And if you meet that minimum criteria, then you can be kind of, you already know that you have been accepted. Who reads your application? So usually admissions committees are broken down into two different levels. And the first level is your regional level. It's a school counselor. They sit at the regional level, so they're really kind of only reading applications from your state or maybe your country or your region. So if we look at Kazakhstan, this is for Columbia University. They have kind of a online spreadsheet of counselors. So I go down, I'd find, they don't have a specific one for Kazakhstan, but they do have one that is for Central Asia. And her name is Whitney Green. So I find her email address, you could send her an email, introduce yourself, that kind of thing. You can ask her questions if you have thoughtful questions regarding the application process. But she will be the first one to read your application if you apply to Columbia University. Their focus is to see if you have the necessary academic credentials. So usually the first time they read your application, they're looking more for your test scores, your grades, your extracurriculars, make sure they're within the average range of other students. And if that looks good, they will send you off to the next reading. And the next reading happens actually by the school level admissions committee. And that's the committee that sits kind of at the admissions office at the university. It's usually a number of people, and they will give your applications a number of read-throughs. So one person will read it, they'll kind of give it a decision. Another person will read through it, they'll discuss, and in the end, they'll come up with a decision to either accept or reject. But the critical part here is that you have your regional reader, and then you have your school level counselor. And the cool thing about this process is that usually you're able to meet your regional reader beforehand. So if there's a career fair or a college fair happening, or if they come to your school, you can meet yourself, introduce yourself. And when they read your application, they're also able to attach, a face or a person to the application. And I believe it's beneficial in the long run. Recently, Harvard University was actually in a lawsuit. A number of students said that their admission practices were unfair. It was specifically Asian American students. They said that they have unfair practices. It's harder for Asian American students to achieve admission. And during the lawsuit, Harvard was required to release some information regarding their admissions criteria. So these are some of the questions that came out of that whole process. They do reveal, I believe, what most selective institutions are searching for, and in general, what most institutions are looking for and asking if they should reject or accept a student. The questions are: have you been stretching yourself academically and personally? And each of these are relative to that person. So they look at the person's situation, school background, and they ask that person, are they kind of really pushing themselves to develop academically and personally? That can be seen through projects, through grades, through part-time job. There's many ways to demonstrate that. How have you used your time? So this is a pretty important one. So if you have a lot of free time, are using it to, as I have said, to kind of develop yourself personally, maybe help your community out, or have you been using it in other capacities, maybe sports, that kind of thing? So they want to see that you're using your time effectively to develop yourself, personally pursue your interests, help your community, doing something in general. So if you're not using your time at all, that probably wouldn't look as strong on your application. They do want to see that you're using your free time in a positive manner in some way, some sort. The next one is, do you have initiative? Initiative just means kind of, if you have an idea, will you actually implement it? So if you say something, are you actually going to do it? They want to see people who commit and kind of succeed in projects. So that could be done through school projects, through extracurricular projects, even through sports. Like if there's a tournament you guys wanted to go to and you guys went and did well, that can also be seen as the initiative. Colleges are looking for people that will add value in the long run to their communities. And if you can demonstrate that you complete projects that you begin, I think it's a very, very, very beneficial factor. Next question. So, do you care deeply about anything, intellectual, extracurricular, personal? And this is kind of goes back to the spike. Is there one thing that you really, really, really are passionate about? And it could be, intellectual subjects, so humanities, history, physics, any kind of one of those, academic subjects. It could be extracurricular activity. Maybe you're really into volunteering or some kind of sport or math Olympiad. Doesn't really matter, but maybe some kind of just activity out there. Or maybe it's personal. Maybe you really enjoy doing some kind of business. Maybe you have some kind of family pursuit that's really important to you. And then it's not really important what it is, but it is important to demonstrate that there is something that is is kind of important to you and that you want to improve and make an impact within. And that's kind of the spike piece. So when this whole lawsuit happened, Harvard did reveal that they do want to see kind of more of a spike than they do want to see kind of well-rounded. Next one is, how open are you to new ideas and people? This one's also, I would say, pretty critical. They want a diverse class, and with diversity comes lots of different people with lots of different backgrounds and ethnicities and races. They want to make sure their class is open to new people and new perspectives. And if you demonstrate that through potential, I mean, it can be seen through tons of different ways, whether that means learning a new language, study abroad opportunities, even just kind of collaborating on projects with teammates and having different ideas and come into one area. So if you can demonstrate that you're open to working with others with different perspectives and ideas through either through a project or study abroad or learning a new language or travel or volunteer, it can be seen in a number of ways, but it is important, something to demonstrate in your application as well. And final piece is, will you contribute something to your college and to your classmates? Will you benefit from your college experience? They want to see that you chose this college for a reason. So if you chose this college just for prestige, it could be in you don't exactly describe why you think this would be a good fit and why you would be a beneficial member to your classmates. It could be problematic. An example would be, let's say you want to go to Columbia University is well known for its political science program. And let's say you want to be a president or some kind of political figure at some point in your career. You could say that I want to go to this college because I want to learn from other, political science majors, really famous professors, and be in an institution that has kind of strong political leanings and ideas. If you kind of describe yourself in that sense, then it makes sense that you really want to contribute to your community and to your classmates, and there's kind of a strong central idea behind it. So it's important to kind of share that goal. The general idea that you want to show in your application is this: schools want to know whether or not you've been challenging yourself and how you'll contribute to their campus and classrooms. So they want to make sure if they accept you, they're making a good choice and that you're going to make their class better. And I mean, when I say better, that means you're going to help other students learn from you. You're going to learn from other students, and you'll be someone who's not afraid to add initiative to the campus. In summary, we can kind of run through this. It's not algorithmic. It's on a case by case basis. So you really want to kind of describe your story, why you should be accepted. Admissions committee, their goal is to design a class with a lot of different interesting people that in the end they believe will create lots of beneficial collaborations and interactions. When they're admitting students because they think they're going to be impactful, not just in college but in beyond. So they really want to admit students who have shown their capacity to create impact and will continue to do so. But once again, that means kind of demonstrating that through your interests. Oftentimes that means having one really kind of strong interest that you really pursue, or you show yourself to be, quite strong at. And that could be your spike, and that kind of demonstrates your interest and your kind of purpose in being accepted. Even if you do change your major or you change your career or you change your interest, not a problem, as long as you continue to develop that new spike. But the most important piece in all this is that you continue to show your ability to progress within that interest. So if you change, that was a really good question. So if you decide to change, let's say 2 years into high school, from physics to, let's say, computer science, or from physics to, you could be writing all of a sudden. There's another question. how can we write to the admissions office in order to stand out a little bit without being annoying? What kind of questions should we ask? So definitely do not ask questions that you can find online. So if there's a question, let's say class structures, like are there any required classes? You can find that information online. Do not send that question to your counselor because you can find it online. So if you can find it online, do not ask your counselor. Um, Better questions would be to kind of ask would be regarding campus kind of experience. So you could ask like, how does the student advising work? Are there access to mental health resources? Those kinds of pieces. So things that are really important to a student experience, but may not exactly be on the website. You could ask, I think a really good question would be asked, what is the general kind of mood or feel on campus? Are students independent or is there a strong sense of community? You could ask about really popular extracurricular activities, how easy is it to meet with a professor or become friends with a professor? So some of these more kind of personal topics might be a good choice to ask to your counselor. Another question, what about the courses that universities provide if we take them will increase our chances? Are you referring to summer classes or like online courses? I would say that they're potentially beneficial. There are online classes. There's this website called edX.com, and universities offer online classes. So like Columbia, Harvard, MIT, Berkeley, all these schools offer online courses on these platforms to provide access to education to everyone. If you take those classes and you do well in them, and you get the certificate and you actually perform, show that you kind of keep developing that interest in your spike, and I would say that they're beneficial. Just taking them because that university offered it. I'd only take these online courses if it's going to help you develop your spike. That's the only reason. So if you're just taking it because that's the university you want to go to and you took their online course, I don't think it's that helpful. But if you're doing it to help develop your spike, so let's say MIT has a physics edX course and physics is your interest, so you can take that online course. It would definitely be helpful in that situation. Okay, so I'll continue with the recap, and if there's more questions, we'll get to them. Okay, so admissions committee, a group of people focus on your extracurriculars, your test scores, and your grades. Some universities have a minimum ACT score and minimum GPA. So if you hit those values, you will be accepted. And some don't even have minimum scores for merit scholarships. So I know that University of Alabama, if you have at least a 27 on your ACT, you're guaranteed I believe a partial scholarship for tuition. So definitely look into those. Maybe you have some test scores and your GPA is good enough for a number of colleges for guaranteed admission and guaranteed merit scholarships here in the United States. More selective universities like Harvard, their admissions criteria is pretty kind of secretive, unknown. So it's kind of sometimes up in the air and you can't really do much in that situation. You have your regional admissions officer. They're going to read your application first. I recommend reaching out to them, asking them some good questions, kind of getting to know them so they get to know you. And then after that, the next person who will be the actual school admissions committee. Then multiple people will read your application and they'll make the final decision if you get accepted or not. And like we discussed previously, they want to see if you're challenging yourself and if you're able to create impact and benefit others is the kind of the main admissions criteria in general. What do you think? Do you think pandemic will affect grants and scholarships for international students? Unfortunately, I have no information on that question. I mean, I'm unsure as what will happen regarding schools. I'm not totally sure if we'll have class in fall in the fall. So Columbia University is still not totally clear if there's going to be class in the fall. So that could be a potential issue. Some universities are concerned about decreased enrollment for the upcoming school year because there could be a potential reemergence of the pandemic. I don't want to provide any kind of false information, so I'm not completely sure. But I could do some more research and find out later if that's helpful. Did you have wow factor during your university application? If by wow factor do you mean I had a spike, I would say maybe I didn't have an intentional spike my entire high school career. I enjoyed starting small businesses, like selling, selling things to then working on a mobile application in high school and in my first year of college. I'm a transfer student, so I transferred from the University of Colorado Boulder to Columbia University after my freshman year. So I would say my spike has been my entrepreneurial pursuit. I've always been interested in that through my extracurriculars. through my projects in class and kind of my projects outside of class. I would say it had some sort of a spike. I also liked engineering and sciences as well. So my application wasn't as, as spiked and defined as some of my friends and peers at Columbia University. But I would say I had a pretty strong interest in one subject area that I pursued pretty clearly. Next question is, how do you stand out from US applicant who has the same application? So I think you need to emphasize your international experience. So a lot of students in the United States have very similar backgrounds and experiences. So they all went to a pretty similar high school, took very similar classes. They oftentimes kind of their childhoods have been quite similar, and that's a generalization, but a lot of them have very similar experiences. So given the fact that you're an international student, we've had some very unique experiences, whether that be through language, food, travel. I think it's quite critical to really focus on your international experience and how that would be beneficial to the student body. So you could say, I'm from Kazakhstan, I've had these interesting experiences, I know this languages, I could really provide some new perspective and some cultural education. And I think that's a strong way to stand out as an international student. Can we apply for early decision in several universities from different countries? If no, can you explain how these universities from different countries know about applications? Most universities have very specific criteria for early decision, and just check their online application, check their website, and see what their rules are. So if they say early decision, they may specifically write like only domestically, and this would be a really good question to reach out to your regional counselor. So like you could reach out to your regional counselor and say, if I apply early decision to another university in another country, they have different rules. Is that okay? And they could say yes or no to that. But I would say definitely reach out to your specific universities and look at their policies. So Stanford has, it's called restrictive early action, which is you can only apply early action to Stanford, but you can apply but there's like the rules specific to only to private universities, and then you can apply early action to state schools. So it's a little confusing, but they have these very specific rules. So I would say reach out to the schools you're interested in, see what their rules are, and go from there. Because I think every university has very specific and different rules on that. But in general, if you apply to early decision to schools in the United States, they're relatively restrictive. They won't let you apply early decision to other schools. There is the case where if you apply early decision to a private school, they will let you apply, early action to public schools. That's an option. So you could apply, you could apply ED to Cornell and then apply early action to Berkeley or something like that. That could be a potential situation. But yeah, best thing is reach out to your specific school, see what their rules are, and then ask your counselor if you're confused.